Welcome to the Determined People podcast, where we bring encouragement, strength, and hope to a world that's in desperate need of it. Our world needs hope desperately. You know, somebody said, I think it was Mark Twain, said that two things are certain, death and taxes. Well, something else is certain. Everybody is struggling with something. Some days the struggles are harder than others. Some periods they're harder than others. But one thing we do know, everyone is struggling with something. That's why I say be kind, even to those people who don't deserve our kindness. We don't know what's going on beneath the surface. Our guest today, his life and his family's life was disrupted by another woman. Rick Bologna. Rick Bologna was, he moved his entire family 5 days before Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005. So let's just start off here, Rick. So you're born and bred in New Orleans, raised there.
Right.
Holly, your wife, is as well.
Right.
So what was life like in New Orleans before that other woman decided to pound down on the Gulf Coast,
so
right?
another woman entered my life named Katrina and affected all of us. Holly and I, we were both native New Orleanians. Went to high schools there, and we met. We got married after college and stuff, and then had two sons. Ben, who at the time was 17, and David, who was 11, or 16 and 10 at the time, somewhere up in there.
Sure.
And so we owned our own business. We had an art gallery, custom framing operation, and a production company, and lived a comfortable life, and was very active in church parish and kids things, Irish dancing for David, and premier soccer for Ben, and just involved in family, sure. And that's very important to us. And then Katrina started to brew in the Gulf, and actually it was more the Eastern Gulf, and they said, hey, listen, this was kind of the week of August, whatever, 20th, something like that, and they said, hey, this is not coming toward New Orleans, not at all, and we'll be fine, because you always look out when you live in the Gulf Coast area, you're always looking out for hurricanes, and so. And so my mom had started hospice care in August, and I remember it was that Thursday, so the 29th was Monday, so 29th, 28th, 27th, 26th, the 25th, 26th was that Friday. That Thursday would have been August 25th. That was Ben, our oldest son. It was a senior ring mass, okay? So he just received the senior ring that night, that Thursday night, and the news came on and said, New Orleans, you better get ready. The storm has shifted, and it's coming to New Orleans. And so basically, the family had the not just the immediate family, but the larger family had a plan on how to evacuate. And one of my nieces, niece-in-law Julie, had made reservations up in Jackson, Mississippi for enough reservations for all of us. And so we all got the hell out of there. And we evacuated on Sunday. The storm hit on Monday, and Mom passed away on Friday. So it was a little bit of a crazy week, to say the least. Then we found out that one of my nephews had checked the house and found out that we had about 2 feet of water in the house. So there was a combination of Mom's passing, the house is flooded. Our business was an art gallery custom framing operation. That physically was okay, but that's a disposable dollar item. And so that was not going to sustain us to get a kid through college with the uncertainty of what was going to happen in the city. Katrina it hit the city pretty hard. We all know the story. The levees broke, the city flooded. So we were in the suburbs, but we still had 2 feet of water. So it was an interesting week, to say the least.
Interesting is one way to say it. Were you and your mom close?
Mom came from Costa Rica. She had married my dad. She had come up to school at Ursuline in New Orleans, and she had met my dad. He lived across the street. He was an altar boy, and they met. And so you have my Italian father and my Costa Rican heritage. So you have a Latin and Italian heritage, which is bombastic.
Yeah, don't lie to match anywhere
That's
close.
right, exactly. So, It was a difficult time. I mean, when you lose a parent, it's difficult. When you lose a parent in a catastrophe, there was different priorities at that point in time. We'd already lost my dad, so I understood the loss of a parent. losing mom in the middle of a catastrophe when you're taking care of your own family and then your own livelihood and your own home, there was a lot of swirling going on in life and trying to figure out what are we going to do next and what are the next steps.
So you mentioned that you guys had a plan to evacuate. Is this something that you'd done years before, or was this something you put together?
No, it was
on the
something.
fly?
It was kind of a plan to put together on the fly. It was, I think, if you live in southern Louisiana and the Gulf Coast region, you kind of have a quasi plan. Sometimes there can be a mentality of, oh, hey, I can handle this storm and go. But there's certain storms that you just know. A Hurricane 1, a Hurricane Category 1, Category 2, you're not really doing much. You know, you're taking precautions, but you can kind of ride those out depending on where the storm is. I think the biggest key with hurricanes is where they're coming. What's the angle that they're coming in, how they're going to hit landfall, and then what's the wind speed, and is it a wet storm, is it a dry storm? I'm not a meteorologist, but you do learn over time what to look for. And you just knew this one was, we got to get the hell out of here.
Wow. How long were you guys in Jackson?
So we got there on Sunday. We drove up. It was Jackson, Mississippi from New Orleans is probably about a 3.5-hour commute. Even with contraflow, where they've reversed all the highways out of the city, it was a 14-hour drive.
Whoa.
It was a 14-hour drive.
Whoa.
And that was leaving at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I figured I'd leave. We figured, okay, I'll leave early and we'll be fine. 14 hours later.
Was that 14 hours straight, or did you have a chance to stop? For
No, it's bumper to bumper, 14 hours. Just,
Wow.
yeah. So it's,
So I got to ask, what did you do if somebody had to pee?
you tried not to drink. You got off real quick somewhere, let them go, and yeah. So
Okay.
yeah.
First thing that comes to mind is
Yeah,
what do you do if
exactly.
you
What do
gotta
you
pee,
do?
right?
Yeah, 14 hours, you're gonna go.
Yes, yeah.
Especially with 2 kids.
Yeah, yeah, that must have been hell. I mean, you got a sick mom,
Right.
And getting her. So you got there on Sunday. How long did you stay in Jackson?
So we stayed in Jackson through pretty much that whole week. That
Okay.
Friday, Mom passed away. We were very blessed. The good Lord, He takes care of us. We got into a hotel that Julie had made all the reservations. God bless her. And then we started looking for a hospice unit around because Mom had just started hospice, and there was one literally about 2 blocks away. We called them up and they said, absolutely, come on over. And so we got Mom in. My sister we put my sister in her kind of van kind of car that she had, and and Mom was kind of in a coma at that time, and so we actually packed a lot of ice in a huge ice chest as well. God forbid that she did pass away on the trip. That trip up to Jackson, because none of us knew that at least we could pack the body in ice.
Sure.
We kind of took that precaution. It sounds morbid, but it was the reality
Yeah.
of what we were dealing with.
It was your reality, yeah.
It was, and so we were in Jackson. The hospice took Mom in. They were wonderful people, and they allowed us to come visit her and everything. And then she passed away on that Friday. We left Jackson on that Saturday or Sunday. No, when was it? We left because that Monday was Labor Day. So we left on that Saturday. We drove up to Dallas. We drove up to Dallas to meet some friends. They said, come up here, come spend a couple of nights with us. And then on that Monday, Labor Day, we drove from Dallas to Austin.
Why Austin?
We had friends here, and we had visited Austin before, and it's a wonderful city. It's a beautiful city. And so I always liked Austin. But there was an opportunity to come stay with some friends that said, hey, what do you need? Can you come, if you want to come to Austin and get the kids in school? And so we didn't know what was going on. Trying to get information during that time was very difficult. And it would come in dribbles and drabbles. My son's school, high school, was had flooded, had 15 feet of water. 15 feet of water. And so with that, now we had to make some decisions. He was a senior in high school, and we had to make some decisions. And I wanted to make sure that Ben did not lose his college track. And that was one of the main foremost decisions in what we were looking at, to maintain his college track. David, who was in 5th grade, I think, 5th or 6th grade at the time, he was good, but our focus was on Ben at the time to make sure we maintained that college track. So we could get to Austin, and we had ample room in a friend's home, and then we could get them into schools here, at least temporarily, to keep them moving.
Sure.
And keep, kind of create, I think as a parent, you want to create stability for your children. That's the main thing. And that's what Holly and I looked at, was how do we create some sort of stability? Even though our lives are swirling down the toilet, okay, how do we create some sort of stability?
So, able to get them in school, you had friends to stay with for as long as you needed to, which was,
Right.
was
Oh,
wonderful.
that in itself was a blessing.
Absolutely. There's so many points in your life story, you and Holly, in your family's life story, where you see God working.
Oh, absolutely.
Could you see it at the time?
I don't think, you're not sitting there looking at it and saying, okay, this is where God's hand is at the time. I think it's more of, you're just relying on your faith. You're relying on your faith, and you know you're leaning on that. I guess I equate it much like if as a kid played a lot of sports, I'm sure maybe you did too. If you trained for something, okay, when you're getting ready to go do it, you're not looking at, okay, well, I trained for this game, and I know that this is what I have to do. No, you're mentally prepared, and you're ready to go into the game and go execute. And so you don't mentally prepare for catastrophe. But your faith, it's not something that you just go to quickly. Sometimes people can, and God bless them. For us, our faith has always been a major component of our life. And so it was there, and you just leaned on it because it's always there. Now, when you step back and you look back in retrospect, yes, you see God's hand where he was maneuvering and he was taking care of us and guiding us. You said the word coincidence in the prayer, okay, in our opening prayer today. There's a little saying, coincidence is God's way of being anonymous.
Albert Einstein.
There you go.
I said coincidence. I rarely say that word.
Oh,
no, I'm going downhill.
There you go. Well, it's your birthday, so it's another year.
Okay, yeah.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, well, thank you,
There
thank
you
you.
go.
Yes. And when you've had as many as I've had, what's one more? Right?
What's one more? That's right. We're about the same. 42. That's what I'm sticking to.
So, but New Orleans was home for all of y'all.
Right,
And
exactly.
was your planning to get back to New Orleans at some point?
Well, we did. That's a great question. We didn't know what we were going to do. First, it was assess. At one point, once we found out about the home was flooded. I remember it was about a Tuesday or Wednesday. We found out that the home was flooded, and it was like, okay. And we were driving somewhere to get something to eat, and Ben at the time, Ben is very organized, very meticulous, okay, and thinks things through, okay. He turned around and he said, "Dad, well, what are we going to do? What's our plan? What are we going to do?" And as a father, this was a difficult time for me. Because I turned around and I said, "Ben," I said, "I've always shot straight with you." Because I think as a young person, you look up to your parents, and they usually have the answers, okay? And I never lied to my children, and I said, "Ben," I said, "for the first time, I'm going to tell you, honestly, I'm not going to lie to you, but I don't know what we're going to do at this point in time." I said, "But don't worry about that." I said, "As we get information and we get data and we start to understand what's taking place, we'll make prudent decisions based upon that data, and we're going to go day by day." I said, sometimes in life you can have a long vision and you can live out that vision. Other times you just have to step back and you take one step at a time. And that's where we were. And he accepted that answer. But as a father, it was hard to really say that because I didn't know. Sure. I really didn't know. Holly and I didn't know what we were going to walk back into, what we had or what we not had or whatever.
When did you go back to New Orleans to assess the damage in your home and clean it out?
Right.
Tell us about that.
So I was sharing that. Somebody asked me about that the other day, and they were kind of hesitant about, I don't want to stir you. I said, no, it's okay. It's part of the story. It's you have chapters in life. good and bad, and some that just really suck. Okay, um, and so, and I think if you can deal with that and you just live with it and you learn from it, then you move forward. I've got an old saying: you can you know, oh woe is me, and we all have our pity moments. Wah wah wah. You know, and that's okay. You just don't do it for 5 or 6 years.
Right.
So you either have a choice. You can implode or you can explode and make something happen, okay? And Holly and I have always been the type to explode and go make something happen, you know? GSD, get stuff done. So we could get back into New Orleans because the city was shut down completely because of the levee breaks and everything. The city was shut down, you couldn't get in. Because we had a business license, we were allowed in about 3 or 4 weeks after, to my recollection. So I could
3
get
or
through
4 weeks?
3 or 4 weeks, right. So we could get through the state line, through the state troopers, and we could get into to our home. And so I went back solo. Holly stayed back and was taking care of the kids. And so when you walk into your home and you just see everything strewn and toppled over and mold and mildew, that water mold smell, as soon as I smell that even to today, I go straight back to Katrina, because it's that poignant of a memory. And so it was about 3 weeks when I could get back. Probably the most emotional part of cleaning out the house, of the whole experience, one of the most emotional parts was that, cleaning out the house. Because literally what I did was, just having been in business and you have things that happen, you deal with insurances, so you know you have to make a list. So I found a clipboard, and I said, well, where am I gonna put it, you know, so I can write stuff down? And I realized, well, hell, the house is torn up. I'll just nail it right into the wall, right by the front door. It's all shot anyway. So it was like, just nail it right to the front door. So it was like, so I just nailed the clipboard up, and then you start literally going into rooms, and you start taking things out. And I just wrote down things on the clipboard, you know. And so I ended up with a pile of your life. I won't say stuff, it's a pile of your life in front of your house. And I was just down in New Orleans a few weeks ago, and those piles were out there again because of Hurricane Ida. That was the emotional part, because you're throwing out so many memories. I remember when we got this goofy stuffed animal at whatever park, and we got this, and that's the hard part. A lot of people get connected to material things. Material things, they're material things. It's the experiences in life that bring the richness in a family and friends and loved ones. And that's what you were throwing out. It's those memories. That was a difficult part.
How angry were you feeling cleaning out your home?
Interesting. It's an interesting question. So it was anger. You go through those different stages. And so there was a lot of anger. I remember when Holly finally got back in town, probably about 6 weeks later, she saw the pile and she said, who helped you move this stuff? I said, nobody. She said, what do you mean? I said, what do you mean? She said, baby, she said, there's a refrigerator out there. There's sofas, there's love seats, there's bookcases. Who helped you? I said, nobody. She said, how'd you move it? And I think you hear those stories of when there's something that really happens that somebody can lift the car to get just enough to get somebody out that's stuck underneath it. Adrenaline, exactly, precisely. And I think that's what it was, because it was that anger. It truly was that anger of just, why? And you're just dragging the sofa out to get the SOB out and just throw it out there and be done with it. Yeah. And when you do that for 2 or 3 days of just throwing stuff out, you do get angry. And you finally get it all out, and it's funny, my nephew and niece-in-law, Julie, Paul, my nephew, he's like a brother to me, they lived in another part of town. They had 1.5 foot of water in their attic, okay?
In their attic?
In their attic. They had so their whole house was flooded.
Yeah.
They're a one-story house. They had 1.5 foot of water in their attic. And so I remember he called me, he said, Uncle Rick, can you bring one of your trailers and can we go down and try to just load up whatever we can save? I said, absolutely, buddy. And so we went down there, and to talk about anger, it was this was such a therapeutic part of all of this, and we were just talking about it last couple of weeks ago. He had a big CD collection and just all kinds of movies and everything. And one of his friends had come over and had some beer, and so we were drinking some beer, taking a break, and we just started throwing CDs at his house and just throwing it. We must have thrown 100 CDs at the house. For me, I had gotten out a lot of anger. For him, that was very therapeutic, I think, for he and his friend, because it was just, again, it was a great question, but that's exactly it. How do you get your anger out?
Are Paul and Julie still there?
They are. They now live on the North Shore, kind of where another part of town. But they sold their house and everything. I mean, the house was ruined, and so that whole area was just flooded. Yeah.
So you get back to Austin. Maybe this happened before you left, but there's a very humbling moment in your life, something you had to do that you never thought that you'd have to do. You applied for welfare. Describe that day.
You grow up with your mom and dad's teachings of self-reliance, and you go make your way in the world, and you try to do that as best you can, and you never think you get to a point where there's a need for assistance, okay? And when there is, it is very humbling. It is very humbling. And I remember they said, listen, over at the welfare office, they're giving out food cards and things like that, and for Katrina victims and refugees. Mm-hmm. And so we said, well, we can go down there and get some. And we had resources, but we knew the resources weren't going to last forever, okay? And so we went down there, and I told Holly, she said, let's go. I said, no, why don't you take David and go to St. Mary's Cathedral and get him enrolled in school. I said, I'll do this. Mm-hmm. And it was very humbling to be outside of your comfort zone in a very vulnerable, quote unquote, very vulnerable position. Mm-hmm. Okay, to where can I produce for my family? Can I produce and take care of my family? And I started to see, I guess, a part of life of other people's daily struggles that sometimes we may take for granted. We may take for granted because we don't have those struggles. And I always go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. First basic need, survival. Yeah. Okay, and that's kind of where we were, and it was very humbling to have to go do that. And there's a story that comes full circle as we get to Hurricane Ida. Mm-hmm. It came full circle, and I'll tell you about it.
No, we will get there. So you get back in Christmas 2005.
Right.
Time for a family meeting.
Yes.
How did that come about? Tell us about the family meeting. I think this is great.
So I drive back to Austin for Christmas so we can spend Christmas together. And the four of us, mm-hmm. and I basically get into the house. I remember this. I'm not even in the house probably 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, because they're like, Dad, we gotta talk. We gotta have a conversation. I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. No, we gotta talk. It's like, okay. I'm looking at Holly, and she said, yeah, we gotta talk. I was like, oh, okay, this is like talk or like talk. She said, no, we gotta talk.
Here.
Yeah, we gotta talk. I was like, oh, okay, gotcha. So let me catch my breath and run to the little boy's room and so
you just walked in.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I remember that. So we sit down and said, what's going on? How's everything going here? It's like, Dad, it's going great. It's like, super. I said, good. Y'all settling into school? And it's like, yeah. It's like, so what are we talking about? It's like, we want to stay. I said, okay, you stay where? Like, we can't stay in this house. These are a friend's house. No, we want to stay in Austin. We want to live here. I said, oh, you want to stay, okay? Now, for a New Orleanian, being a very provincial and parochial town, which it's a very wonderful town, that's like, you don't leave New Orleans, okay,
It's a unique
but
culture.
It is a unique culture. It's a wonderful culture. It'll always
is.
be home, and it's a wonderful culture, and the food is absolutely incredible, and that's the reason I look the way I look, okay? And so I said, what do you mean you want to stay? I said, we love Austin. We've just fallen in love with Austin. We've done things. It's just completely different and everything. And it was interesting that came from the boys, from Ben and David, and even Holly as well. And so as we sat down, we talked about it, and then they said, let Mom and I talk about it and discuss it, and we're going to pray about it, obviously, and look at pros and cons, and that means we start all over, but we're starting all over anyway, there or here. So which one do you want to start over in? And I could kind of see the political climate, and I'll just leave it at the political climate of what was taking place down there, of what should be happening and what wasn't happening. And so we made the decision to stay, and 16 years later, we're still here in Austin.
Yeah.
So
So you and Holly were both native New Orleans. I can't say the word.
New Orleanians.
I can't say it. But,
Who dat?
But you get
Who dat?
There you go. So how torn were y'all about moving to Texas?
That was a difficult decision. That was because you're leaving your entire known lifetime infrastructure. You're leaving it all. You're leaving family, you're leaving friends, you're leaving schoolmates, and I'm not talking high school, I'm talking from grammar school through high school, through college. New Orleans is very interconnected, so you know a lot of people. There isn't a place that you wouldn't go and, it's, oh yeah, I know so-and-so, and so you're leaving all of that, okay? And, but main thing, you're leaving behind family. It was a very difficult decision. I remember when we finally made the decision and we were doing it, there's a place on I-10, you cross over the Mississippi River Bridge in Baton Rouge, and you look to the left as you're heading west, and there's LSU, okay? And the stadium and everything.
The Shrine of Louisiana.
That's right. Go Tigers, and just about another 5 or 10 miles past that, there's a grove of trees that's on the highway between the median and the side. It's just a large grove of trees for about 10 miles. And I remember driving the truck. I was by myself and just in tears, with our life belongings in the truck, and just driving that truck through the grove. And every time I drive through a grove of trees, even to this day, it still brings back those memories. And it's things that don't leave. But it was a very difficult decision. You don't see what the future may hold. You're only looking backwards and seeing what you're leaving behind. And I think one of the things in life as we get older, we may have some gray hair.
On that older part, speak for yourself.
Okay, there you go. But I have a saying that when you're younger, your hair is one color, and you see life in black and white. And I think as you get older, the good Lord, through experience and wisdom, He gives you gray hair. And with that, you start to see that life isn't black and white. There's a lot of gray area. And I think one of the things I've learned in life over the years is that when you leave something or you end something, we always tend to look back, and we have fear of the future because you don't know what's going to be there. And I think, and maybe I'm only saying this from my own perspective, but it's that fear of, okay, well, this could happen and that could happen, and rather than, oh, really, this could happen and that could happen, where it could be positive things. And for us, we've been, knock on wood, very blessed. A lot of positive things have happened here. And there's some things in our lives with David that wouldn't have necessarily happened if we hadn't been here in Austin the way it played out. So you look back and you know exactly where God's hand has touched your life if you're in tune with that.
If you're listening.
If you're listening, that's the key. You have to listen. And you may not hear it right then and there, but at some point you go, oh, got it.
Steve Jobs said something that is directly to your point. He said, you can't connect the dots looking in the future. You can only connect the dots looking in the past. So you have to trust that your dots will connect in the future.
Right.
And it's very true.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and we all, it's great, it's a great saying, and sometimes we think the dots or the tea leaves are in a lineal order. That's how most of us think. Well, they're in a lineal order.
That's how we want them.
That's how we want them, in a sequential order. Yeah. They're not. The dots or the tea leaves are scattered, and you have to learn to look, okay, not at this. You have to look at the bigger picture and say, oh, wait a minute. Oh, and there's one down here. And it's like, and now we can start to connect the dots. When you look at the Big Dipper, you don't see the big, you got to look at the dots. You have to look at the stars and use a little bit of imagination and say, I see it now.
See it now. So share that story about what happened to David, because you were here in Austin.
Right. So David was in New Orleans. He was, I don't know how humbly say it, he did Irish dancing and a lot of theater. And he was kind of Mr. Theater kid in New Orleans, okay? And,
let me just say to the audience, he's supremely talented.
He
and
is.
A nice young man. But he is supremely talented.
Right. And so he was kind of Mr. Theater kid in New Orleans, and he'd done productions, regional productions throughout the city, and garnered a lot of awards and everything. And, you know, the big talk was Broadway. And you know, in my mind, I kept thinking, okay, how do I really know if he's that good? Okay, how do you know? You know, Holly and I had nothing to do with theater other than buying a ticket to go see a show, much less knowing what goes on backstage. And so as he did shows, we'd meet people, we would ask questions of people and kind of try to indoctrinate and find out in between the lines of, you know, what does it really take for Broadway? What does it take to do this and things like that? And so we were, when we got here, David was 10. And some friends had told us about a wonderful theater troupe here called Kids Acting. A dear friend, Dee Dee Clark, who's a dear friend till today, owns Kids Acting. And so we spoke to David, said, David, let's get you enrolled in theater. Again, Holly and I are looking at stability. Let's try to take whatever we can from a former life, okay, and try to recreate it here, at least for the time being, until we made some decisions. And I remember David turning around.
Take your time.
As a 10-year-old, incredibly talented child, and turning around saying, I don't ever want to go on stage again. I want nothing to do with that. I don't ever want to step on stage again. And Holly and I couldn't comprehend it at the time. It's like, and I'm always the one that's going to try to fix stuff, okay? Holly truly is the brains and looks of this operation, okay? Exactly. And it was like, no, you gotta have to do it. And it was about a day later, Holly turned around, she said, that's a 10-year-old saying he's angry with the storm and what's happened. As adults, we can say, okay, here's what happened in our life, and we're leaving a life. Even as an adult, that's hard to say that you're leaving a life behind. You hear it in the news today. Afghanistan refugees leaving a life behind. Refugees coming up from the south, leaving a life behind. Desperation, okay? Whatever the purpose is. And Holly nailed it. He was angry. He was angry with the storm. And why did I have to give up my life? I don't want to ever go on that stage again. Little by little, with some coaxing and Dee Dee just welcoming him into her organization and troupe, he started to do some shows at Kids Acting, and with that he started to come back around, and it's kind of like riding a bicycle. Yeah. And well, one day he comes home and he says, "Mom, Dad," he said, there's auditions for Billy Elliot up in Dallas coming up in a couple of weeks. And we said, "Okay, great. What's a Billy Elliot?"
I have no idea what a Billy Elliot was.
Okay. And he goes, "There's that movie, and they're making it a Broadway show. And it's about, a ballet dancer." Mm-hmm. David, had, in conjunction with theater, was a world-class Irish dancer. Had won nationals a couple of times, placed, I think, highest, 5th in the world, okay? Mm-hmm. And I said, "What are you, I don't even know what you're talking about." So we did some research. Long story short, one of my sisters had moved to Plano, right outside of Dallas. So we went up and did a audition, well, not we, he did the audition for Billy Elliot, okay? Never heard back from it and left it at that, okay? About a year and a half later, they call up and said, "Hey, listen, David's not gonna work for the Billy role because he doesn't have ballet skills. Mm-hmm. But there's a huge tap part in in the other supporting role for Michael, and we'd like to bring David back." And kind of the rest was history. He made, he got the role, and then Holly and David moved up to New York to go do Billy Elliot, and that was another
chapter. He created
chapter.
the role on Broadway.
He did. He was the opening night, Michael, and
got nominated for a Tony.
He did. He got nominated for a Tony for that. And
You're going, "How's this happen?"
right. And my good friend Norman, my brother from another mother,
yeah.
he called me up one day and he said, "Brother," he said, "let's look at your life right now," because we had a household in New York where Holly and David lived. Mm-hmm. Ben was in college, so he was up at UT Arlington. So we had a household in New York, a household in Arlington, and then the house here. Mm-hmm. And I got stuck with the 2 cats. Okay, and so he said, let's look at your life right now. He said, so that was 2005. He said, this is 2009, 2008. Mm-hmm. He said 3 years ago. He said, if somebody would have told you 3 years from now, 3 years ago, 3 years from now, you'd be living in Texas, your kid's on Broadway, nominated for a Tony, your other son's graduating from UT Arlington with a degree in graphic design. I said, "Brother, you're smoking something, Mm-hmm. That wasn't even a dream of a dream of a dream. I mean, that was so far. Our life now was nothing that we ever thought of." Mm-hmm. Again, that's God's hand, mm-hmm. because I don't think we have the time. But there was a time where I struggled with, how do I get this kid a shot to know how good he is? Mm. And there was a time on a retreat that I go on annually that I finally just turned around to God and literally screamed out and said, "Here, you take it." And I lifted up from the ground up and said, "Here, you take it. I can't figure this out anymore." Mm-hmm. I said, "It's yours. It's you take it and figure it out, because you're giving me an incredibly talented sons, okay? But I don't know what to do with this, and I don't have the resources." Mm-hmm. I said, "So you figure this out. It's yours." That's not quite exactly what I said, but you can have those conversations with God.
Yeah, he can take a punch, too.
Yeah, he can. Mm-hmm. He can. And I said, "Here's the deal, though." I said, "Give me a sign, but don't give me some, little cutesy subtle sign." I said, "I need a freaking neon light sign, okay?"
I get it.
And so it was a tough day at work, and it happened to be my birthday, and I got a phone call from New York and said, "Hey, we're interested in David for this role." Mm-hmm. And I just looked up and I said, "Got you." He gave me the flashing neon sign on
the
my
Broadway lights.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got your neon sign. That's awesome.
I got my neon sign. So
that is awesome.
So that's kind of, there's a lot of things. I look at Ben's life, where Ben has gone now. He's married a wonderful girl, Jackie, mm-hmm. and they have 2 beautiful children, a 2-year-old, little JoJo, and Bennett, who was just born. Circle back to kind of Katrina and that catastrophe. Katrina was August 29th, 2005. Okay, 16 years to the day. Mm-hmm. August 29th, 2021, just a few months ago, Hurricane Ida hit New Orleans. And that's part of the reason Holly and I made a decision to move, mm-hmm. because we didn't want to experience that again. And so we moved because it wasn't a matter of, you know, if it was going to happen, it was when. But 16 years to the day, I think still have a whole region of people just kind of like, it's just weird.
It is.
Okay? But also on August 29th here in Austin, Jackie and Ben gave birth to Bennett, our second grandchild, little Bennett.
If it was a girl, would it have been Katrina or Ida?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. So you know, again, God in His infinite wisdom, at least for us, has given us August 29th as a different day. There's good and there's bad, and that's life. But that's life. It's not. The good doesn't erase what happened in 2005.
Of course.
But there's a balance, and I think that's what we all strive for.
Yes, sir. So you and your family had a hell of a good. By the way, before we move on, I want to say one thing about David. Yes, he is an extremely talented young man, but he's not let it go to his head. He's one of the nicest young men, and that's a testament to the strength of your family. And all the things
Thank
you're
you.
describing is a testament to the strength of your family. You do stuff together as a family, and like you're the role models, okay?
Well, thank you.
Everybody needs a Holly. Okay?
Everybody, trust me,
I am blessed. Okay, there's blind squirrels do find a nut every now and then.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, but there came a point where one day you woke up in Austin, Texas, and you had nothing to do. The one day you didn't
Yes.
have something to do.
Right. So
What
yeah.
happened?
So that was interesting. So after the storm, you're in a mode of, and this didn't come to me until, again, you look back and you see things. You're in a mode of you have to do things. You have to do things. I have to get this done today. I have to get this. And what you lose in a storm besides, or a catastrophe, and whether it's a storm, whether it's a life passing of a loved one or a major illness, what you lose is you lose that sense of normalcy in your life. So when people say, it's just a normal day, those are strong words. Those are very good
Yes, sir.
words. It's just a normal day. It's like, that was a good day. And so it had been probably about 10 or 11 months of just having to do things. It's like, you know, we had to go find a house. You had to do this. You had to change licenses. You had to. And you just do it because you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And a gentleman, God rest his soul now, Bob Vallely, he one day asked me, he said, hey, you want to go play some golf? He said, I'm a member at Onion Creek, and he said, you know, I know you're an avid golfer, and love to show you where the Champions Tour kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, wow. And I hadn't even thought about golf in 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
God only knows where the clubs were. And I remember we got out there, and I remember getting home, and I asked Holly, I said, I was asked to go play some golf on Saturday. And she looked, and she said, well, why don't you go? I was like, I said, we got anything to do? I mean, the point was, it was the first time in like 10 or 11 months or, you know, years that I could make a choice to actually go do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've all experienced this recently with COVID. Just to go to a movie, just to go to a restaurant, just to go, that sense of normalcy. We've all experienced, the whole world now, we can all say it,
Yes.
the whole world has experienced that.
Yes, it has.
And so, and we're still experiencing it to some degree. So how do you get back to that quote unquote whatever normal is, or a new normal? Okay, I think we're experiencing that. But I remember standing on the first tee, and I remember playing Onion Creek probably about 2 years ago for the first time after that. And I remember standing on that tee and we were recollecting, I was just standing on that first tee that day, quietly, and tears were running down my eyes. And Bob, he was an older gentleman, he walked up and he said, partner, you okay? And I said, yeah. I said, I'm yeah. He said, you sure? I said, no, I'm not. And I said, I was lying. And he said, I said, Bob, I said, these are tears of joy. I said, I said, golf is something that I love. I said, so thank you for this gift today. I said, but let me explain to you. And I explained to him, that, you had to. It was the first thing I did after Katrina that I could make a choice on to go do something fun, okay, something enjoyable in life, And we're blessed that we can do that. There's many people in the world today, here in the United States, here in Austin, Texas, that don't even have that choice to go do something fun.
That is right. So, speaking of fun, and actually more fulfillment, you're in business for yourself for years, successful business. You've had some executive jobs here in Austin, Texas. But what is Rick Bologna doing now?
It's interesting. It's again, God pulls you on a journey where sometimes you can fight it or you just kind of go with it. There's an old saying, you can look it up online, it's called Bicycling with God. It's a wonderful poem, Bicycling with God. Just go find it online and enjoy it.
You can fight it, but he's going to get his way either way.
So exactly. And when you learn that you don't control it, it's exactly it. So, back when COVID hit, the company I was with, they furloughed half the company from vice presidents all the way down, and I was part of that. And so that was tough. That was a very difficult time because now we're back to square one again, and it was in the technology sector. And so I took a lot of my experiences from Katrina and sent that out to the rest of the team that had been furloughed. And I said, listen, it's not Katrina. You're going to survive. You're going to be fine. Here's some steps to go through. And the sooner you get started, the sooner you're going to get to a landing point, okay? And many of those young people in their 20s and 30s, we're in touch today, but they're very grateful for that. And so we got a phone call one day and said, hey, listen, the St. Vincent de Paul Society is looking for a stores director to run their thrift stores, or to kind of oversee all the thrift stores that they have. And I was like, oh, okay, I'd done retail. I was like, it's really not what I wanted to do. I've kind of been in technology now on the HR side and kind of enjoyed that. And but those doors weren't opening. And so we got to a point where it was like, okay, I'm tired of sitting around, looking for a role every day. So I went down there and we chatted, and so I'm the stores director at the Society of St. Vincent de Paul for Central Texas. Unbeknownst to me that it is a there's the business aspect of it, but there's also the ministerial aspect of it as well, of dealing with homeless people and the people that are fighting that daily battle every day that I saw in the welfare office. Sure. Or they don't have the opportunity to do something fun, okay, because they have to survive each day. Again, Maslow's hierarchy of need. Yes. And so it's been very fulfilling in that aspect, and we've taken a store that was doing, I guess, okay. We're nonprofit, but you still have to run a nonprofit with good business practices.
That's right. Okay,
and so that's what we've tried to instill. We have an incredible paid team that works with us. That's part of my team, but we also have an incredible volunteer team of many Vincentians who have rallied behind and really have kind of bought into the vision of what we're looking to do. And I'm proud to say that we, because it is we collectively, this past fiscal year had the greatest fiscal year that the store has ever had in its history here, and that was we were only open 3 days a week in a pandemic.
Even during coronavirus.
Even during Corona, right?
Wow.
And we fiscally had so we've turned some things around. There's a lot more to go, but you touch people's lives. You touch people's lives, and when Ida happened, there was an interesting happening took place when Ida hit. So, so it was some of the volunteers had texted me and said, hey, listen, we got a family coming in from Louisiana that was affected by Ida, and they'll be here Saturday morning, and there's a voucher here for them and stuff. And it was like, okay, great. So sure enough, about 10:15, we open at 10. They come walking in, and there's a guy with his LSU shirt on. I said, oh, Michelle, how you doing? Brother, go Tigers. He said, Michelle, yes, indeed.
I guess that makes sense to y'all.
Yeah, it does. It makes sense to us, yeah. So Boudreaux and Thibodeau, so we're talking and everything. And I said, how y'all doing? I introduced myself. They didn't know anything about me, but I knew about them. I knew exactly where they were.
Mm-hmm.
They were a week after Ida. I knew exactly where they were and what stage of life where they were. And it was scary, and yet it was wonderful because I was on the other side of the equation and could give back and could pay forward. And so it was 3 generations of a family. And so I said, here's where everything is in the store. Go get what you need. We're going to take care of you, okay? And we finished, and they were in there for about 2 or 3 hours because you don't know what you need, and you're kind of bashful of. And I told him, I said, you get what you need. And I explained to him the whole story. I said, I know where you are. I've been there. Mm-hmm. I've walked your journey. I said, so if you trust me, I'll teach you a few things along the way. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so 3 hours later, we got everything, checked out for him and everything. And I said, y'all hungry? Is everybody hungry? It's about lunchtime. And he said, yeah. I said, great. I said, we have a great, restaurant right here attached to the store, 2-in-1 grill. I said, it's a wonderful restaurant. They got wonderful food. So I walked over there, Carlos. I said, I'm going to set up tables for 16. I said, let them order what they want, and I'll come back and catch up with you. And he said, okay. And
they must have been overwhelmed with gratitude.
They were, and so they said, are you going to eat with us? I said, I can't. I said, it's a Saturday, and I said, it's just crazy in the store. I said, but I'll pop in when I can. And they were probably there for about an hour and a half, and I said, just get what you want, and let the kids have dessert and ice cream. Carlos at 2-in-1 just hooked them up and took care of them. Yeah. And so, and they just came back, and they were so thankful and everything. And I said, listen, the food pantry happened today because we have a food pantry every Saturday morning from 9 to 12. And I said, I got some boxes of food for you to take back to where you're staying with your daughter because you got a lot more people. So here's a few boxes of food. And he said, how do we thank you? And I said, no thanks is needed. I said, hang tight. Well, she came back in, and she said, we were talking about what was going on, what may be going on at home. And she said she didn't know. And I said, okay. I said, well, so I kind of coached her on insurance, how to do insurance, the clipboard, okay? The old clipboard, yeah, just nail that sucker up there, okay? And so she said, thank you so much. And I said, hang on. And so I gave her an envelope with cash in it, okay? And I said, take this. She said, no, I can't. I said, just take it. You're going to need it. She said, no. I said, just please take the envelope. And I gave her the envelope. And so that was that Saturday. So that Friday, the following Friday morning. Well, let me backtrack. So they leave, and I'm in the store, and one of the ladies came up to me, and she kind of put her arm around me. She goes, you okay? I said, nah. So she said, yeah, I can tell. And, I kind of wear my feelings on my shirt sleeve, so.
Couldn't tell.
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, she said that was tough. I said, it was tough. I said, but it was very gratifying because you get to pay it forward. You got to pay it forward for the things that people did for us when we were here, when we were there 16 years ago, to the day. That's the scary part, to the day. It's the same sequence of time, okay? So I get a phone call Friday morning. My phone rings, and I see the number. And I said, how are you all doing? She said, we're doing good. She said, we had to get home. We drove all last night, Thursday night, because the air conditioner in the van broke. I said, oh, my God. And she said, we can only drive at night because it wouldn't be so hot, Texas heat in August, Texas, Louisiana heat in August. And so she said, I got to tell you something. I said, okay. She said, this one. She said, thank you so much for everything. I said, well, I said, it's no problem. I'm glad we could do it. And she said, we wouldn't have made it home if it wasn't for you. I said, okay. I said, why? She said, that envelope of cash that you gave us. I said, yeah. And she said, all the electricity is out, so all the credit card machines, they don't function. They can't take cards. She said, without that gift, we wouldn't have made it home.
Wow.
You want to talk about God's hand?
Yeah. Yep.
You want to talk about God's hand? To me, I think we're all people. I always envision like a beautiful white lady's long glove, okay? If you take that glove and you just lay it on a table, it's just a glove. That's who we are. When God puts his hand in that glove, okay, he uses us.
Yep.
That's the imagery in my mind. And that's all we are. That's all we are. So to your point, give back, touch people, so you never know where people are.
You don't know. And empathy is a shared experience. You were uniquely qualified for that family to meet when they got here after Hurricane Ida. Coincidence? I don't think so. That is God remaining anonymous. Rick Bologna, thank you for being here and for sharing your story and for crying on video. but no, it's awesome. And I can't wait to see what God does next in your life, because things are happening and they will continue to happen. So thank you.
You're quite welcome. Anytime.
And that is our show for today. Again, thank you for being part of the Determined People podcast. We appreciate you. We appreciate you tuning in and watching and listening during the week. I will be back tomorrow with another 1-minute inspirational thought. And if you like the show, would you please go on iTunes and just drop us a review? 5 stars is very helpful because it helps move us up in the rankings, helps us get noticed. We're just trying to spread encouragement, strength, and hope to a world that truly, desperately needs it. And if you don't like the podcast, don't worry about the review. We'll be fine without it. I look forward to seeing you next time on the Determined People podcast. And again, thank you for being with us and being part of the show. Everyone, be well.